Hello everyone, welcome to the presentation on updating your add-ons for Expression Engine 6. My name is Yuri. I've been working with Expression Engine for over than 10 years now, and earlier this year I have joined Packetide team in order to collaborate on getting new wonderful 6th version of the CMS out of the door. Expression Engine 6 has a number of new features that we love, that we hope people will love, and that will also make life of developers much easier. I will start with the good news. Most of the add-ons that are functional in EE5 will also be functioning in EE6. The only little exception is that if your code is directly using member group model, it needs to be replaced with a roles model. And I will guide you on how to do that quick and easy. I will also be covering other topics such as integration with a new jump menu, simplified installer for the add-ons, and few others. Let's get started. So in E6, member groups have been replaced by roles. The difference is that in older versions of Expression Engine, member can be part of only one group. In E6, member have multiple roles. Old member group is now functioning as primary role, but there can be virtually unlimited number of secondary roles that can be assigned to a member. So when in control panel you go to create a new member, you'll notice this roles tab where you can select primary role and also apply any number of additional roles that you want. So for the developers, this would mean any calls to member groups needs to be replaced with roles. So let's suppose you have this code in E4 or E5 that gets all members group that exist in your system and lists them using their group IDs and group titles. Now in Expression Engine 6, this code will throw an exception and it needs to be updated. It might look something similar like this. Instead of getting member group model, we'll get role model, and group ID property will be replaced by role ID, and group title becomes just name. That's it, it should be functional. But let's suppose we want this code to work both on 5 and 6. So what we'll need to do is we will actually need to check for Expression Engine version that you're running, and depending on that, apply this or other chunk of code. We'll be using version compare, and we'll be checking against upware constant, which represents your Expression Engine version. So if you are less than E6, some earlier version, then use old member group model. If it's version 6 or newer, we'll be using role model. That's it. Now, another common use of member groups is checking the group of person that is currently logged in. So you might somewhere have this type of code. This would return something like 1 if you are super admin, or 5 if you are a member, or anything else. And this also will not work in Expression Engine 6. Instead, you will need to use primary role role ID. But if the purpose of this code is to check for permission, you will do much better if instead you will be using permission service and check for certain permission, like is the member superadmin, or can the member access control panel? And finally, the good news, if you are using old legacy code checking user data, it will just work. You don't need to make any changes to it. But if you're calling member group model directly, you would need to replace it with role. Now let's make a real add-on. I have prepared a sample one to demonstrate all the nice things that I want to tell you about. It's called Smiley, and if we go to add-ons in E control panel, it's already there. But what you might notice is, first thing, it has an icon. So where does it get its icon? That's very simple. Just place a file named icon.svg or icon.png into add-on folder inside system user add-ons, and that's it. If the icon file is named properly, it will appear here. It doesn't need to be added to config or anything. Just have the file, it will show there. Some EE magic. Now let's click install, and as expected, it is installed. But let's look inside the actual installer code. You might see it's a bit shorter than it used to be. This is because we are using this add-on installer service and make UPD class extend installer. So now the only thing that we really need is to have this public function construct call parent construct, and it will run the installer functions. Everything is needed. So every steps that are need to taken by the installer can be described with the variables. The public actions variable lists the methods that are going to be installed into actions table, like the front-end calls, or say endpoints to the front-end post requests. Also has CP backend and has publish fields. These variables that are already existing in E5, they are simply available here, and you can just change the variable and it becomes immediately effective for the installer. Now, what if we need to do something extra, like install a table? We can do this as an extra step. So we have our public function install calling parent install. And once that's done, as the next step, we load dbforge and create a table, just like we used to do it before. And same with uninstall. After we actually uninstall the module, we remove the table or do any other actions. Same thing with extensions. Let's have ext for class extend installer add-on service and just call public function construct, make it call parent construct. The only thing that's different is that we also pass the settings array. If we need to do anything extra, we can do activate extension, disable extension, and after calling the parent method, just do something else. So installer becomes much easier. I hope you will like it. Now let's jump into jump menu. On any page in your control panel, hit Ctrl J or Command J, and you'll get this drop-down menu open that you can use to navigate to anywhere inside your EECP. So let's say I want to clear my caches. So I start typing cache, and there is a link to Cache Manager, which I can click or I can hit enter on it, and I get to appropriate page. Let's say I want to edit an entry titled About. So what I do is hit Ctrl J or just click inside this input, start typing entries. I choose edit entry titled, and again I can select or I can just start typing and hit enter once there is a selection that I like. There I am. Add-ons are also able to provide their custom links to drop-down menu. By default, every add-on is included with a link to its settings. So let's say I want to get to RTE settings, Ctrl J, I type RTE, and there is add-on rich text editor link. Now let's make some custom jumps using this add-on that we've created, Smiley. Now all it does is just displaying a smiley in the control panel. So let's go to some other page, open the jump menu and start typing smile. And here's the link to the main add-on page, which is created automatically. But there are also two extra links, Smile to Me and Show Smiles. So Smile to Me, everything it does, it brings you to the add-ons control panel. And if you select Show Smiles, you'll get this list of smileys. So how do we do that? First of all, we would need to create a file called jump.smiley.php inside main add-on directory. And it needs to have class smiley underscore jump, which you can see is consisting of two parts, the base class smiley and underscore jump is the suffix that's always required for the jumps, and it needs to extend abstract jump menu service. It is required to have protected static items variable, which is associative array of jump menu commands. Now, as you have noticed, there can be two types of commands. One is triggering the control panel page directly, like it's just a link, and another is displaying you a list of options inside the jump menu. We call it dynamic. So for the just links, the minimum that we need is a command, whatever is required to type in order to have the option presented, and the target would be the relative link to add-on page. So if it's index page, we can leave the target empty. If it's a method called show, we would have the target show, and it will go to CP add-ons settings smiley show. But for this demonstration, we just want it to go to index, so we leave it empty, and it will go to this page. The icon is the class name of Font Awesome library. We are including Font Awesome with the Expression Engine, so you can use whatever is available in the free version. The command title is the text that represents the option in Jump menu. It can be a real language string, but it's better to have it as an key from lang file. So we have this smile_to_me key, which corresponds to smile to me string. We can use also some formatting here, like make word smile bold. And this is dynamic files command, which works just as a link to control panel. The other type of commands are dynamic commands, which are not invoking any other page, but are displaying a subset of commands, which is contained in this very file. So example of this is our second item, show smiles. It has command, which is now 2 words, command title, dynamic set to true, and target smiles. So smiles here would be the method defined in this jump file. If we would call the target list smiles, then it would mean we would need to have the function named list smiles. And it needs to return an array of items formatted same as you would need to do with a non-dynamic top level jump menu elements. We have icon with a CSS class from Font Awesome library, command title, dynamic files, which can probably be omitted, and a target. So that's basically it. Another thing I would like to cover is the updated entry manager and how to make your field type work better with it. Now, by the time E6 will be out, filter bar on this page might look a little bit different. But what's most important is that we have added these columns drop down to it that allows you to select fields that are displayed in this table. So let's say we want just title and URL title. I uncheck the checkboxes, click anywhere on the page, and in a second, the page reloads, show me the columns that I selected. I can also select any of the custom fields that I have. So let's now filter by blog entries and select our smiley column in the list. Now, in order for your custom field type to appear in columns list, we need to tell the system that it is compatible with the new entries manager. And there are 3 ways to do this. The most straightforward to do this is to directly say that your field type implements column interface. If you are extending a field type, you shouldn't worry about implementing those methods separately because they are already implemented in a field type. Unfortunately, this method works only if your field type is for version 6 only. Because in version 5, column interface doesn't exist, this will throw an error. But there are other methods which can help you achieve the same. So we have this variable has array data, which tells the system whether the field is getting saved as pure text in the column or if it's serialized array or something even more complex. So let us see how this actually works. Here we have our sample field type with has array data property set to false. We are displaying the field as simple text area, and when replacing the tag, we add a smiley at the end of first sentence. So let's add some content to entry that has this field. Save and close and see how this works. Yes, here we have our smiley. Good. But what about more complex cases? Like when you have a field type that's using external table to store its data, or using some serialized base 64 encoded data. We certainly don't want to have that displayed in the entry manager. But we do want to display something that would be human readable to tell the people that, hey, this is the content of this column. So in this case, has array data would be obviously set to true. And there is extra property that you can use to tell that this field should be displayed in column as column in entry manager, and it's entry manager compatible, which is Boolean, so needs to be set to true. Now, if you are setting this to true, you would also need to implement one method from entry manager column interface. And this would be a render table cell. In our case, we would be just calling replace tag as previously. Another thing I want to address is HTML and CSS and JavaScript changes. So as you can see, E6 control panel is somewhat different from what used to be in E5. Some layout has changed, some CSS class names have changed. So you might need to address those in your add-ons. You might not, because we have tried to make the transition as smooth as possible, but in some cases, if you were relying on certain selectors, those might need to be updated. So in your JS, if you need to target E6 specifically, you would need to check for data attribute on body HTML tag. We have added data E version for body. So you can just check this in your JavaScript, and if it's not undefined, and if the first character is 6, then you are using E version 6. Let's try this out. I have added this JavaScript to our smiley, and I'm using jump menu to go straight there. Yep, I have this JavaScript saying you are using E6. Okay, and why the color is pink? This is because I'm also loading CSS, and I'm targeting data E version starting with 6. Thank you everyone who stayed with me. I hope that it wasn't too boring, and I hope that you have learned something new. Goodbye.
All right, guys, so we're going to chill out here for a little bit. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, Yuri's available to take those and get those answered regarding E6 add-ons. Any questions with E6 development, that kind of stuff, we can field a little bit of those. Larger, higher level questions, we're going to have the roundtable later on today. So definitely want you to submit your questions via that form I posted earlier, and that's available in the reception area. Yuri, the question on everybody's mind is, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Yuri Salimovsky.
All right.
quite complex.
So Ron asked, any insights on how the new roles would implement on the template side where we used to do group_ID?
I think there's some problem here. I can hear the questions immediately after they've been
yeah.
asked.
Make sure you're looking at the backstage instead of the front, the main stage there.
So for the group_ID, this is being automatically translated to primary role ID. So for the templates, there are no changes required. We might be adding few tags or variables inside member model to address the roles. But for now, old group ID and group name tags are just being translated into primary role.
Awesome. All right. So there's another question. Is there any enhancements in member custom fields?
Not yet, but this is on our roadmap.
Okay. And so TJ says, so is it correct to think that our add-ons should continue functioning as is unless you're touching member groups? Otherwise, all the new stuff you discussed are for supporting new features.
Yes, that's right. We expect majority of add-ons to just be functional, except as you have seen, the control panel is different. So if you want your backend to look nice in E6, you might need to make some changes, address specifically version 6. As well, if you have some backend JavaScript tied to your add-on control panel, because the HTML tags have changed, some different classes are used, so you might need to address that as well. Otherwise, we expect everything to be just functional.
Yeah,
but this is why we will. Sorry, guys. This is why we will have the beta out soon, so these things can really be tested.
Yeah, and I can attest to. I know I was running with our current version of the beta yesterday, and I upgraded the site from 2.6 all the way to 6, and it had some random add-ons, some lesser known ones, and all the versions that we had running in 5.3 continued to work in version 6 just fine without issue. So that was really good to see. And again, I mean, I think Tom kind of said this in the keynote, but one of our goals with E6 was making upgrading from 5 to 6 as painless as possible for everyone. So we tried not to introduce too many breaking changes where we could avoid it. Tahir, I believe is how you say that. What about license validation in the add-on? I know the guys have been working on that. Yuri, do you have any insight as far as the license validation right now?
I don't have much to say except this is a thing in progress. This is probably not going to be part of beta we will release in a couple of days, but we do have some plans for add-ons to use the license validation. That's all I can say. I don't really have much details.
Tahir, if you go to the reception area, there's a link for a form for the dev roundtable or for the EE6 roundtable later on with the EE team. And you can submit that there, and we can ask the group as a whole. We're going to have more of the team available at that time. TJ, if we're using native methods to render UI, I assume it will look right. I don't remember how much Ansel UI is custom and how much is calling native methods to render them. HTML, yeah.
Yes, that's our expectation too. However, we've seen some add-ons having like minor inconsistencies. We're working on that. UX is still being under improvement. So things might not work perfectly in beta, but the aim is if you use native methods to render UI, it will look just great as the rest of ECP.
And I'm going to put the link in here, guys, for the EE team roundtable later on, so you can go ahead and post questions there. And I think we're gonna have everybody in there. That's I'll be moderating that along with Yuri, and then Tom will be in there. I think Robin, who handles a lot of our support, is going to be in there. Jace, who's been doing a lot of work on the core, is going to be in there for sure, and possibly Matt as well. So we're going to kind of have the whole team in there if you want to ask questions about E6, E development, E future, all that kind of stuff. Tahir asked an update on Twig. Tom mentioned that in the keynote earlier that we're going to support that. That's not coming out in 6, but it's definitely in our plans to get that in there as soon as possible. Or I don't want to say as soon as possible, but soon. It's on everybody's mind that we want that in there. Travis asked, any changes or development of the control panel home landing panel itself? Yes, there's some big UI changes to that. I don't know from a development aspect. Any insight there, Yuri?
Well, yes. But we don't know yet whether it will be part of 6.0 or not.
Yeah, I think Tom's chiming in here that we're probably not going to put that into 6.0. So
I think that refers to Twig, but
okay,
this
yeah,
one probably as well.
TJ, can you speak at all on the time to how hard it will be to support the current template parser and Twig? I don't think we've really. I know we have that in our backlog, and we've kind of talked about it internally a little bit, but I don't know if we've really dug into the actual amount of effort that's going to take to implement the Twig stuff. Have we, Yuri?
Yeah, we've discussed it, and just like Tom said in his presentation, the plan is to support Twig templates and EE templates, but not have them mixed together. But we don't know yet how much effort that will be. We really didn't dig.
Yeah, it looks like
Just
TJ.
knowing.
It looks like TJ is going to be submitting a PR to the GitHub repo to take care of that for us. So
hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah, it did come up yesterday. I was chatting with some of the conference organizers regarding add-on development, add-ons that actually implement or inject stuff directly into templates. And if add-ons themselves are going to have to support both Twig and native EE templating and how we might handle that. For instance, if someone's using Twig but the add-on template code is in the native EE, just the amount that or how we're going to handle that. So again, all that's in the future. It's not rolling out in 6.0, but it's definitely in our backlog to look at that, and we've already had early conversations on it. Travis asked, I guess we should be asking add-on questions. Do you have any news about the add-on store or the developers in it? I'm just curious about that.
I don't have. I think Tom might be more in place to answer this question, and he should be available on the Dev Roundtable.
Yeah, Travis, if you don't mind submitting that to that form, and we'll go more in depth in that in the roundtable towards the end of the day there. Anybody else? One question that's coming in from another chat here. Do we have any plans for migrations?
Yes, we do. Again, not in E6, original first release, but we do have plans to improve the overall system of migrations, including add-on migrations. In fact, already in version 6, you are able to go directly from version 2 to version 6 without any intermediate stops. And we'll be also be including CLI, which allows you to perform the updates, and this will likely include running add-on updates as well. But this is not finalized yet, so might be as well not part of initial release.
Awesome. And Gavin asked, what are plans for updating documentation? The plans are we want to update the documentation the best as possible. I think Yuri mentioned this in the chat earlier, but we know it's not going to be 100% ready for the beta, but we are working on the documentation. We're combing through that. I know earlier this year we even started just from scratch, going through every page in the documentation, trying to update stuff. We've definitely heard the community as far as there's some pain points in the documentation that we want to update, including stuff for the add-ons and building add-ons. Yuri, do you have anything to add to that?
Nothing really, except that we really will be updating documentation with screenshots for version 6 as well, because we know that some illustrations for the current docs are really out of date, and we'll try be adding more stuff specifically for the devs. But we are really in the process there.
Yeah. I mean, overall as a whole, I'll say, and I think Tom would echo this, that, we want to make EE accessible for everybody. We want to make it easier to use. We want to make it easier to implement. I know recently we got it included in Solfa-licious, or however you say that, for control panel installs, and doing different stuff that's going to make it more available and easier to install and get working with. And I really like what Caroline or Adrian did yesterday with the simple add-on development, just making it easier for people to extend and use Expression Engine. Blair asked, creating members with Ldap here, so assigning a member to a primary group won't change much if I'm using the create member approach.
Well, I'm not sure what exactly is create member approach, but it is recommended that you use models. So if you use models, the only thing you would need to change is change member group to role, and that's it.
All right, and then Brian asked, what about a style guide? I found that to be extremely helpful when building add-ons. I don't think we have a style guide right now for the add-ons, do we, Yuri?
No, I don't think we have updated style guide. This might be as well a question for Andy Johnson to ask on his session.
Yeah, Andy Johnson tomorrow is actually going to go through the entire design update in UI to EE6. So that might be a really good question for him. He's really come in and helped us. When we acquired, there was some there was some direction for EE6 already, and we kind of started running with that. But he really came in and cleaned things up and made it really nice. Tom, of course, a big hat tip to Doug Black. He's done a lot of that work on the upgrade process for us. So I don't know if you guys saw the tweet from the conference account yesterday, where I actually ran that 2.6 to 6 upgrade all in one hop. That was pretty awesome. And I actually got the site up and running after that with no errors or anything. Thank you, Doug Black. Yeah, Brian, I remember that when they came out with EE3, there was a big thing around the style guide. But again, like you said, it got outdated and abandoned. And that's kind of been some early conversation we've had, is we don't want to implement something again that's just going to be abandoned. So before we push anything out or update anything, we want to make sure that we're going to be able to support it and support it well. So that's definitely one thing we'd like to do. It's just one more thing to make sure we have a process around so it doesn't get outdated again. Form of the docs. Yep, Josh. Josh was just saying that he'd like to see this talk in the docs, and it's certainly something that we're going to translate into there. Mike says, is there any plan of a new add-on bootstrapping tool coming to the new CLI? So I think Mike, you're referring to the ability to something, just in the CLI, create field type or something like that in the CLI. Yuri, do we have any of that in the new CLI coming out?
I think that's has been part of the plan, but since I've not been working on that part myself, so I don't really know. What I can point out is there is a third-party tool by Doug Black that's provides you some scaffolding already. It's not EE6 updated yet, but it's something that I've tried and I find it to be a nice thing.
Okay. I was going to ask Doug to chime in there because I know he's worked a lot on the CLI for us. And sure enough, he says that that's going to be in 6.1. So yeah, do check out Triple Nerd Score's EE add-on generator that Doug just posted. And you can definitely generate. I know that's fun for me as a I have PHP chops, but I'm more the project manager. So anytime that I'm doing a add-on or something, it always takes me a few minutes, and that's been very helpful already. All right, definitely, again, if you guys have any more questions or feel like we didn't go into depth or anything, fill out that form. Let's get that in the roundtable. We definitely want this whole conference to be interactive discussions, questions and answers, not just you guys watching videos all day and doing work on the side. So those roundtables are going to be huge for that. And again, Tom's mentioned that he's available. You can ping anybody on this in here, just click on their name in the chat and you can invite them to a video call or chat directly to them. I think some of our EE team might even be in our expo booth later. And then of course we have the roundtable as well. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. It's actually a good time to go grab lunch. The next sessions start at 12:30 p.m. On the stage, it's going to be Where's All the Expression Engine Work? I think that's with Caroline. And then Travis in the sessions section is going to be breaking up hard to do, splitting up a multi-site setup. I know I've had to do that a few times the last couple of years, and it'll be definitely good to see his insight as to how he handles that. And TJ just said, to make sure 12:30, yes, Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, New York time. Let's just go with that. We appreciate all you guys. I know the international audience this year, that's new for us. If you're not familiar with the conference, usually we're in person. We pick a city and go with it. And so having kind of the international audience and having an international conference has been very new for us. So we appreciate your patience with the time zones, all that kind of stuff. Let us know definitely improvements. We're going to have some surveys as far as how the event went, how speakers are doing, how the conference went. We definitely want to utilize this platform, if possible, throughout the year to have other conferences, whether it's just a one-dayer or maybe a couple sessions, something like that, to keep the community together and keep EE growing. To do that, we definitely need your support. So if you can, eeconf.com and click on the donate button. Our sponsors are amazing, but our expenses don't stop tomorrow when the conference is over. To support this stuff, we still have to have the money for it. So we really appreciate you guys and anything that you guys can give in that direction. Yuri, thank you very much. Thanks for the video. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
I know it's getting kind of later in the day for you over in the Ukraine. So happy to have you join, and it's been a real honor to work with you, and have really enjoyed all of our conversations over the time. So other than that, we're going to go ahead and turn this off, and everybody go enjoy their lunch, and see you guys at 12:30 Eastern time. Thanks, guys. Bye.